Now, I must say, there must have been something in the water for that programme, because you really haven't aged as badly as you should have done after these years. You've both done very well. It's fantastic. And
he's a crawler. I like that. She was the lovely Aimi MacDonald. And interesting in that first show, because we every week added an extra person. But at the end of that series, we thought, no, Amy's best, so she took over.
Oh, bless. Yeah. No, but that's how the lovely thing came about, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because every week, another girl was added, right? Yeah. And we had to say who we were. And then in my script one week, I just said, oh, and my name is Aimi MacDonald, and I'm the loveliest. And it sort of stuck. But it was a joke.
No, it wasn't. You were the loveliest. But it was basically, at the time, we were sort of, there were so many shows where there were sort of women on it who didn't really belong there and didn't want to be there and were crumpets. And you thought, let's go for the real crumpets.
The DVD set has got a tremendous lot of extras on it, and one of those I'm going to show you a clip from now. This is an interview that John Cleese has done exclusively for this release. Just going to have him say a few words about putting the show together. So could we run the clip, please?
And then David came to me after that, because I'd worked with him a lot, Frost Report, Frost Programme. We'd probably done, I don't know, 50 shows together. And he said that he would like me to do a show of my own. I kind of went, and he kind of said, it's all right, it'll be late night, there won't be a big focus on it. And he said, who would you like to do it with? And I immediately said, well, obviously Graham Chapman and Tim Brooke-Taylor, because I'd written with Graham already a lot. And Tim was the guy at that time that I most enjoyed performing with. We were very good together, a little bit like me and Palin later on. And he said, anyone else? And I said to him, yes, Marty Feldman. And he was astonished because Marty was only a writer. And he'd been the editor on the scripts on the Frost Report. And I had got to know him. He was an exotic creature, along with his wife Loretta, and they were so much more sophisticated. And I would go to restaurants with them, and they knew London, and they'd been to all the posh restaurants, and I loved Marty. It was so interesting, and all his East End rhyming slang and all this stuff, and back slang, and we got on terribly well. We went on holiday together, and of course he was terribly funny. So I said to David, you just have to trust me, but he's very, very funny, and his technique won't be good, but we'll rehearse him a lot, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, we spent hours in the first series rehearsing with Marty, because he was funny, but kind of no technique, you know. He'd do it the first time through, it would be nothing like the second time through until you'd sort of said, well, that's the good bit, do it like that. And then we started the show. The first series went out fairly early in '67, and it was noticed a bit, particularly by a wonderful critic called Philip Purser in the Telegraph. We loved Purser because he got the show, and he even, when he wrote reviews about it, it was as though he put a little bit of a flavor of the show in his reviews. We thought he was great. But we weren't going out many stations in England. I mean, it was mainly London Weekend Television or Rediffusion or something like that. But we were going out one or two others. And then there was a break while I did the second Frost Report. And then we did the second series. And in that, suddenly people noticed Marty. In the first series, they noticed me. That was the highest profile I had. But after that, the second series, they noticed Marty. And Marty was just wonderful. There were certain things he could do and be funnier than anyone else.
Now, it's interesting that he brought up Marty there. I wanted to talk a little about Marty because...
I thought that was a load of cobblers because I have a completely different version of that, which was David Frost, because we were working as researchers for him, and he said, Tim, will you do this too? I said, well, I'm with my friends, Marty and Graham. He said, well, unfortunately, John is doing Frost Report, so he can't do it. Anyway, persuaded him, and then we got Marty on board with Graham. And I remember doing the pilot, and Marty was brilliant, and David said, well, I think it's very good, but I'm not sure about Monty Feldman. I don't think people will like his eyes, which, of course, is his fortune in many ways.
Yeah.
But otherwise, John is perfectly right.
But I was told that Marty got more fan mail from ladies than all the guys put together. Don't know who told me that.
Probably John.
Is it John? Probably Marty. But I thought this man was the cleanest actor I've ever seen. By that I mean, clean, everything, just like that, You knew exactly what he was going to do, and he did it so well. I applaud you.
I'm not sure what you did know what I wanted to do, but fair enough.
So sharp.
John in there does say that Marty wasn't used to performing. He had performed before, hadn't he? He'd been in a stand-up for a while.
I worked with him in a review about a year before all that happened.
Yeah.
He wrote a review we did about comedy and jazz with Annie Ross, and there was a whole sort of divided into two bits. And he wrote it, and it was, I have to tell you, a dreadful flop. It was awful. And there was wonderful people in it, but didn't work. And the next time I saw Marty was in rehearsals for the 48 show.
And it was a big flop.
Yeah.
I mean, did you have to work harder with him because he was a little undisciplined, or did he get it straight away, Marty?
I thought he was perfectly disciplined, but then I wish John was here so we could argue about it. But he performed as a stand-up comedian for a time on, in fact, music hall more than anything else. And he was such a brilliant writer. And the other important person that one always forgets was Dennis Norden, who always used to come to the final rehearsal. And whatever he said, like, that doesn't quite work, we would accept completely.
That's right. We used to call him the doctor.
Yes, that's right, yes.
He used to come in and look at it and tell us what was wrong and right. Yeah.
And the fact that we all accepted it meant how much we admired it.
Yeah, that's right.
I was also impressed how, I mean, you really got it. You really got how to play Aimi. And I wondered if did they tell you exactly what to do, or did you think, was it in the script itself?
Well, I found things that I said myself appearing in the script. You see, I used to go in on the Monday. I came to every rehearsal, but I wasn't in any of the sketches. So I would come into the rehearsal, and I'd have nothing to do, really, and I would sort of play around. I remember there was some skates, roller skates on the set, and I put those on to amuse myself. And then it was lunch, everybody, and I remember Marty grabbed me, and this was in Kingsway when we were rehearsing at the top, and he took me down in the lift, didn't say anything to me, just grabbed me, I said, right, going to lunch, in the lift, and it was so embarrassing, because I'm there in these roller skates, which I promise you was not happening then. And he takes me down in the lift, in the roller skates, and people are getting on the lift, and they say, don't pay any attention to her, she goes everywhere in roller skates, and then everybody's going like that. And then out in the street and up the road. I mean, they did crazy things like that to me. And then one day there was a piano, and I was sort of messing around on the piano, and then the next show, that was in the show, me playing the piano, playing a song called I Love the Lovely Amy MacDonald. So they just wrote that in, you see. And then I did have a terrible habit of saying, do you know what I mean, darling? Naturally, I still do. It's so irritating. But they latched on to that, you see. So then I found the next, because I would get my script on the Thursday. They were all doing their sketches, you know, being wonderful all week. And then I would be given my script. And then I would see all those things in it that I said anyway, you see. So they wrote a lot of stuff that and that was one of them. Do you know what I mean, darling? So one episode.
I know what you mean, darling.
Yeah. One episode after everything I did, had to say, do you know what I mean, darling? So that's what happened there.
I remember we brought out an LP, and I remember saying, we ought to write something in the back. And someone said, well, let Amy write it, and then we can put it right. She wrote it, and we didn't change a word. It was brilliant. So you know what I mean, darling?
I know what you mean, darling.
I thought you were very good the way they hijacked your show. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
I thought you were very tolerant, and it was. It's amazingly consistent show when you look at it now. I mean, most of the sketches really still stand up, and good performances, and quite fast-paced. And I think it was quite a breakout show at the time, wasn't it? I think, although you'd been on TV before, I think that's where people started to notice you.
Yeah, well, definitely it was, yes. And it was being able to do what we wanted to do, which is the great thing. I'm just rather ashamed it's Monty Python at 50 is the reason we're here, rather than 48 show. But God bless them. But it was one of those things that you felt you were doing it, but will we get away with this? And as John said, it didn't go out around the country for a time. And so it's wonderful that the people have got this bits of information or clips that I haven't seen. Some of that I haven't seen for 50-odd years.
Me neither. I haven't seen them at all. Because when we were doing that, I didn't have a television set. Did you? I didn't have a television. And the first I knew that anybody would know who I was, I remember going to the supermarket one day, and suddenly people are going, "Oh, it's you!" And, you know, that was a bit of a shock, because I didn't see any of that, no.
I think the reason we decided to put it in the Python wraparound was simply because we knew we'd get more publicity there.
No, you're absolutely
And bringing
right.
bringing out the DVDs is the thing that we really wanted to make sure we reached the maximum audience with them. So I'm sorry, yes, you're right. It's good enough to stand on its own. I do agree. I'm going to open it out to questions from the audience.
No, he had a sort of illness that did it. I'm trying to forget what it's called. That's right. Thyroid problem, that was what it was, and that gave his eyes like that. But he made the most of them, and it was great. It was a wonderful face, and
Yeah.
you could see you from all angles. Strange when he went there, because he did a television series here that was for America, and it became more American, and he became more American. And he said to me, "I'm sorry, I'm going American." I said, "Do it and make as much money as you can," which is what he did. And he was an incredibly nice man. We even went to the World Cup final together and sat about 4 seats away from the Queen. And I remember standing up and celebrating, hugging him, and thinking, "Oh God, so people are going to see her hugging," and everybody was hugging around. So it was great. Yeah. His father, who was an East End tailor, managed to get us tickets. I'm not quite sure how he managed. I wasn't going to ask any questions.
I was at the time working as a soubrette. I don't know if you know what that word means. A soubrette is a singer-dancer, okay? And I was in a nightclub in Bond Street. Didn't you come in?
I did. It was just a coincidence. You understand? Actually, I do remember going there, because John and I went there, because Martin said, "Go and see this Amy, you'll like her." And we sat
He told you to go?
Yeah.
Oh, right, because I don't think he was there.
No, he wasn't. We sat at this table, and suddenly we thought, "Gosh, we must be attractive," because these very nice ladies were all sitting next to us and very interested. And this wasn't Amy, who was one of the performers.
They
but
were the
this
hostesses.
which is the polite word for it. But John and I were so naive, we had no idea what was going on. Anyway, Amy came on and we were struck. So that was it.
Bless you. Oh. Yeah, so that's how it happened. So Marty obviously suggested me to them, and they came, had a look and said, yeah. Yeah,
Well, wouldn't you?
that's how it happened. And actually, I'm ever so grateful for that, because do you know what? If you hadn't come in to the club that night, I might never have gone into television, you know? And in those days, we went from job to job. I have to say, in the 60s, it was quite easy to find employment in show business if you could sing and dance and act a bit, you know. You just went from show to show to show. But television was very hard to break into. And, of course, films, consequently. So
you
I'm
owe
really
me.
grateful. Thank you, Tim.
There's a sketch in there when you pretend to show us your real voice, not the one that you use in the show. But when you came to the show, you were born in Glasgow, yeah?
Yes.
So did you have a
yes.
broad Glaswegian accent?
No, I grew up in Ayrshire. I went to school in Glasgow, but I grew up in Ayrshire. And the first little school I went to, I went to a local school, and I don't know if anybody here knows Beath in Ayrshire, but Beath has quite a strong accent, you know. And I remember coming home from school one day. I was about 8, and my mother was sitting there with a friend, right? And my mother, I loved her dearly, but she was a bit of a snob, you know? So anyway, I come in from school, and I just learned a poem. And I was so excited because I learnt this poem, and I wanted her to hear it. And if you've got a minute, this is how it went. We does the engine say toot toot? Is it for you to gang in the tunnel? Oh, why does the rain gang in the newt when the rain gang's down the funnel? Oh, well, no, fall to the windy moor. The next stop's Kirkcaldy. And what'll I hae for my tea the next? A herring? Or maybe a hoddy? Well, my mother was appalled. The next day, I was auditioning for another school in Glasgow that taught drama and elocution. That's what happened to me.
It's a wonderful Russian.
Now, Tim, you said you hadn't seen some of those for many, many years.
No.
One of the hallmarks of your performance in this show all the way through, and in MARTY, I think, is how much energy you put in it, like in The Hospital Visitor, and when you do...
This one.
It made me quite tired just watching
Yeah, I was
that.
going to say.
Absolutely.
Yes, well, it was a lot of physical stuff at the time, which transferred into the goodies later, but it was... I don't know, I just loved that sort of humour. I mean, we all of us loved silent films, Buster Keaton in particular, and you can see a bit of that in some of it. I wish there was a bit more filming outside, but we couldn't afford that.
But did you ever have dance training? Because I used to watch you doing these physical things and think, you've got to be a dancer.
Well, I was asked to do Strictly a few years ago. But they hadn't finished the sentence when I said, no, thank you, I can't. I would love to have been able to do it, but my mother used to teach me the Charleston.
Right.
You don't need to see it. It's all right. A lot of it was actually, yes. Marty was writing round the horn at the time as well, so sort of Sunday and Monday. He and I would meet up and write bits, and John and Graham would write together, and we'd get together for a meeting, and it was really, at the end of the week, we sort of decided what was going to go in there. Some things grew out of conversations, like Marty and I, the Four Yorkshiremen was Marty and I talking, and we both used the same sort of expression, oh, I had it worse than you type thing. And then we got together, and then suddenly Graham and John brought in some great lines, and it was a good mixture of people. I remember hearing Eric Idle saying, the one awkward thing for him of Python was he was the solo writer, but in a way, writing is not my strength, but with Marty, it was so much easier. Really funny writer. And Round the Hall I still find incredibly funny.
You have got the accolade of being the only non-Python that gets a writing credit on the Python series. Or that when the live stage show, didn't they? They gave you credit.
Even paid me a little bit, which is... it took... I remember going to a party given by David Frost, and Michael Palin and Terry Jones came up and said, I'd like to apologise. We'd like to apologise. We didn't know that the Four Yorkshiremen was a Last 948 show sketch. We apologise. And so I do get up, don't worry. But they did pay me a bit, and that's largely due to Eric Idle. The trouble is, there were other things going on, and in a way I wish I had, but I think the writing would have been a bit of a strain. But I was doing a series with Graham Garden, and we did 2 series of that, and the BBC said, we'd like another series, but could you do something slightly different, meaning could it be a lot better? And that's when the goodies came around. It was about the same time, because Python were, I thought, was brilliant about them. People were fed up with sketch shows where you'd have a theme, you'd reach the punchline, and you have to start all over again. Python got round this brilliantly by usually Graham coming and saying, this is getting silly, let's do something completely different. And that's how they managed to do it. And with the goodies, it was the same thing, but we did it with a story, so that kept the things together. I wish I'd been a member of the Python, because then I'd had a bigger house. Tape was actually worth a lot of money. Actually, we didn't see it this evening, but there's a sketch, plainclothes policeman. Actually, it's plainclothes police women, because John, Marty, and Graham dressed up as women, and I'm the person. Obviously, what happened was that we got it wrong the first time. They couldn't edit the tape because that would ruin it, so they did it again. But what you will see is John, Graham, and Marty giving me different names than they had in the first take. And the audience are roaring with laughter because they read, and you can look the stunned look on my face. It's the most unprofessional sketch, but probably the funniest of the whole lot.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us about a Last Night 48 show. I'm so pleased that we finally managed to get it out, and it's testament to great work you did all those years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, my 2 great guests.
Thank you.